What if I told you that your greatest wound, your overwhelming sensitivity to others, your exhaustion from feeling everything so deeply, is actually your psyche's desperate attempt to make you whole? I know that sounds impossible right now. You've spent years, maybe decades, trying to protect yourself. You've visualized white light, you've set intentions, you've learned about energy vampires and toxic people. You've built walls and boundaries, and still you walk into a room and feel crushed by emotions that aren't even yours. Still you leave conversations feeling drained, hollowed out, like someone reached inside and took something vital from you. You've been told you're an empath, that you're special gifted different, that you feel more deeply than others. And there's truth in that recognition. But what if I told you that the story you've been told about what it means to be an empath is incomplete? What if the real secret to protecting your energy has nothing to do with protection at all? Here's what nobody tells you. The exhaustion, the overwhelm, the sense that you're carrying everyone else's pain, it's not actually about them. It's about you. Specifically, it's about the fragmented parts of yourself that you've been running from since childhood, now showing up in every person who triggers you, every relationship that drains you, every interaction that leaves you feeling like you're drowning. There's a Swiss psychiatrist who understood this better than anyone. He didn't speak of empaths or energy fields. He spoke of something far more profound, the psyche's relentless drive toward wholeness. He understood that what we experience is outside of us. The overwhelming feelings we think we're absorbing from others are actually projections of our own unintegrated shadow. The parts of ourselves we've disowned, rejected, pushed into the darkness because they were too painful, too dangerous, too unacceptable to acknowledge. Your sensitivity isn't random. It's not a cosmic gift or a karmic burden. It's a symptom, a signal. Your unconscious mind desperately trying to show you what needs to be integrated, what needs to be healed, what needs to be brought back home to yourself. The real secret isn't about keeping others' energy out. It's about bringing your own energy back in. I'm going to share something with you that might feel confrontational at first. The draining narcissist in your life, the victim who never changes, the angry person who triggers you, they're not attacking your energy. They're mirroring your disowned self. Every person who exhausts you is showing you a part of yourself that you've refused to see, a quality you've rejected, a capacity you've denied. And here's the beautiful, terrible truth. Once you understand this, once you truly see it, everything changes. Not because you've built better boundaries or found stronger protection techniques, but because you've become whole enough that there's nothing left to defend. Think about how you've been living. You walk into a coffee shop and immediately scan the emotional field. Someone behind you in line is anxious and you feel your chest tighten. The barista is tired and suddenly you're exhausted. Your friend texts you their problem, and before you've even responded, you're carrying the weight of their situation in your body. You've been living like an open wound, like a raw nerve, exposed to every emotional current around you. But what if that openness isn't actually openness at all? What if it's fragmentation masquerading as sensitivity? What if you're not more connected than others, but less integrated? The truly whole person can be completely open because they know exactly where they end and another begins. They can feel everything without becoming everything. That's the destination we're moving toward. By the end of this journey, you'll understand the real reason you feel everything so intensely. You'll discover why you developed this sensitivity in the first place, what childhood survival mechanism created it, and how the very thing you've been trying to protect is actually what's keeping you fragmented. Most importantly, you'll learn the ancient psychological process that transforms sensitivity from a wound into wisdom, from a curse into a calling. This isn't another video about energy management. This is about psychological completion, about becoming whole, about the sacred process that one psychologist called individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are. Beneath all the wounds, all the defenses, all the parts you've hidden away to survive. If this is already shaking something loose in your soul, if you feel that tremor of recognition, hit that like button and subscribe. This journey requires courage. It requires a willingness to look at what you've been avoiding. And I'm honored to walk it with you. Let's begin where all deep healing begins, with the truth about what you've been calling sensitivity. Here's the first illusion we need to shatter. You are not a psychic sponge. I know how it feels. You walk into a room and immediately sense the tension. Someone is upset, and suddenly you feel upset. Your friend is anxious, and your chest tightens with their anxiety. A family member is angry, and that anger floods your system like it's your own. It feels exactly like absorption, like you're pulling their energy into your field, like you're carrying their emotional weight. But what if that's not what's happening at all? What if the overwhelming feelings you experience around others aren't coming from them, but through them? What if they're acting as mirrors, reflecting back parts of yourself that you've pushed so far down, you've forgotten they exist? This is where Carl Jung empath understanding begins to shift everything. The psyche, in its brilliant wisdom, doesn't actually distinguish between self and other, the way our conscious mind does. At the unconscious level, we're far more porous, far more connected. And when we encounter someone who embodies a quality we've repressed in ourselves, we experience what feels like their energy, but it's actually recognition, soul-level recognition of what we've disowned. Think about it. Why do some people drain you while others don't? Why does one person's anger trigger you while another's passes right through? It's not about their energy being stronger. It's about resonance, about which frequencies match the buried parts of yourself. The feeling function, one of the 4 primary ways we orient to the world, is meant to help us make value judgments, to know what matters to us. But when this function becomes overdeveloped, when it's hyperactivated as a survival strategy, it turns against us. You feel everything, not because you're spiritually advanced, but because your feeling function went into overdrive, trying to keep you safe. Let me take you back to the origin of this sensitivity. Back to a time before you had words for what you were experiencing. You were young, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 years old. Your brain was still forming, your sense of self still crystallizing. And in that crucial developmental window, something happened. Maybe your caregivers were unpredictable. Maybe they were emotionally volatile. Maybe they were distant, unavailable, or overwhelmed by their own pain. Maybe there was addiction in the home, or violence, or simply the quiet devastation of emotional neglect. And you, small and dependent, needed to survive. You needed to secure love, attention, safety. So you developed a superpower. You learned to read the room before you entered it. You learned to sense your mother's mood before she spoke. You learned to predict your father's anger before it erupted. You became exquisitely attuned to the emotional states of the people your survival depended on. Let me paint this more specifically. Maybe you remember being 4 years old, playing quietly, and suddenly feeling the shift in the house. Something changed in the air. You couldn't name it, but you felt it. Danger, tension, storm coming. So you changed too. You became smaller, quieter, more helpful. Or maybe you became entertaining funny, the one who could shift the mood. You learned to shapeshift based on what the environment required, and it worked. You survived. But here's what nobody tells you about survival strategies they don't turn off when the danger passes. That hypervigilance, that constant monitoring, that shape-shifting sensitivity, it becomes your default operating system. You're 40 years old and still scanning the room like you're 4, still adjusting yourself to manage others' emotions like your survival depends on it. This is what's called complex formation. A complex is like a splinter in the psyche, a fragment that split off during a moment of overwhelm or trauma. The empath complex, the part of you that feels everything formed around this early wounding. It developed not to help others, but to help you navigate danger, to predict threat, to secure love by becoming whatever was needed. And here's what's crucial to understand. This complex doesn't just sit quietly in your psyche. It runs autonomously. It has its own agenda, its own perception, its own energy. Long after the original danger has passed, this part of you is still scanning, still hyper-vigilant, still trying to keep you safe by monitoring everyone else's emotional state. You moved your energy up. From your root, your foundation, your grounding. From your sacral, your creativity, your life force. From your solar plexus, your power, your will. You moved all that energy up into your heart and higher chakras because down there in the body, in the instincts, it wasn't safe. The body held too much pain. The gut held too much fear. So you learned to live in your upper chakras, to be all heart and perception, disconnected from the grounding force of your own embodied existence. In psychological terms, this is dissociation, a survival strategy that becomes a prison. You built a persona, a mask, an identity. The sensitive one, the helper, the one who understands. And you wore this mask so long, you forgot it was a mask. You thought this was who you are. But here's where it gets really interesting. Here's where the shadow enters. Every quality you developed in your persona has an opposite that you rejected. If you became the helper, you rejected the one who needs help. If you became endlessly giving, you rejected the capacity to receive. If you became all empathy, you rejected healthy self-focus. And where did those rejected parts go? Into the shadow, into the darkness, into the unconscious realm where disowned qualities live, waiting to be recognized. And this is why you attract narcissists. This is why the same draining dynamics keep showing up in different forms. Not because you're codependent, not because you're a victim, but because the narcissist embodies your unlived life. They carry the shadow qualities you've rejected. The self-prioritization, the boundary setting, the unapologetic self-focus, the capacity to say no without drowning in guilt. Part of you, and this is the uncomfortable truth, part of you envies them. Part of you wishes you could be that certain, that boundaried, that focused on your own needs. But you can't acknowledge that wish because it contradicts your entire identity. So instead, you attract people who embody it, and then you suffer in relationship with them, and your psyche hopes that through this suffering, through this proximity, you'll finally integrate what they're showing you. This is the shadow in the mirror. Every person who drains you is showing you yourself. The victim shows you your disowned sovereignty. The narcissist shows you your rejected self-assertion. The angry person shows you your unexpressed rage. They're not stealing your energy. They're reflecting your fragmentation. And here's what makes this even more profound. You're not just dealing with your personal shadow, your individual rejected qualities. You're also interfacing with the collective unconscious, with archetypal patterns that run through all of humanity. The wounded healer archetype is living through you. Ancient, powerful, universal. The one who has been hurt and now must heal others. The one whose sensitivity comes from suffering. This archetype has its gifts: deep compassion, profound understanding, the capacity to hold space for others' pain. But when you're identified with it, when you become it, rather than working with it consciously, it devours you. You become the perpetual healer who never heals, the eternal helper who never receives help, the sensitive soul who carries everyone's burden but your own. This is why some people affect you more than others. You're not picking up their energy. You're resonating with archetypal frequencies. When someone activates the wounded healer in you, when they play the role of the one who needs saving, your complex lights up. You feel compelled to help, to fix, to heal. Not because they're pulling on your energy, but because your own psychic structure is responding to an ancient pattern. But here's where everything shifts. Here's where the real secret reveals itself. You don't have to stay identified with the wound. You don't have to remain fragmented. There's a process in ancient psychological technology that transforms sensitivity from symptom into strength. from wound into wisdom. It's called individuation, the journey of becoming whole. And it changes everything. Individuation. The word itself holds power. Individuation. Becoming undivided. Becoming whole. Becoming individual not through separation, but through integration of all that you are, light and shadow, conscious and unconscious, acceptable and rejected. This is the secret that shifts everything. Your sensitivity isn't something to protect, it's something to complete. You're not trying to manage your empathic abilities, you're trying to integrate the fragmented aspects of self that created the need for those abilities in the first place. The alchemists understood this process. They spoke in symbols and metaphors, but they were describing psychological transformation. The base metal of wounded sensitivity transformed through the alchemical fire of consciousness into the gold of integrated wholeness. Not by getting rid of the sensitivity, but by bringing it into relationship with all the other parts of yourself you've rejected. Let me show you how this works. Let me show you the map. Every person who drains you is showing you a disowned part of yourself. This isn't metaphor. This is the mechanism. When you haven't integrated your shadow, when you've split off parts of yourself and pushed them into the unconscious, you experience those parts as outside of you. You project them onto others, and then you react to them in others as if they're external threats, when really they're internal refugees trying to come home. The narcissist who exhausts you with their self-focus, they're showing you your unlived self-assertion, the boundary you haven't set, the permission to prioritize yourself that you've never granted. Every time they center themselves, you feel drained because you're witnessing someone do what you've forbidden yourself to do. Your exhaustion isn't from their energy. It's from the internal tension of watching someone embody your shadow while you remain imprisoned in your persona. Let me give you a concrete example. You have a colleague who always talks about themselves in meetings, never asks how you are, always brings conversations back to their achievements, their problems, their life. And every interaction with them leaves you feeling depleted and resentful. You think they're sucking your energy. But what's really happening? You're witnessing someone who has no guilt about centering themselves. Someone who doesn't apologize for taking up space. Someone who prioritizes their own needs without drowning in shame. And part of you, the part you've buried deep, desperately wants that freedom. But you can't admit you want it because it contradicts your entire identity as the selfless, giving, empathic person. So instead, you feel drained. The exhaustion is the cost of maintaining the split between who you pretend to be and who you secretly wish you could be. The victim in your life who never changes, who always has a crisis, who pulls you into their drama. They're showing you your unlived sovereignty, your disowned power, your rejected capacity to stand in your own authority. You feel drained because they're living out the helplessness you've buried, the powerlessness you've denied, the dependence you've masked with your helper identity. They're the mirror showing you what happens when power is fully rejected, and it terrifies you because you've rejected your own power too, just in a different costume. The angry person who triggers you, who makes you want to run or freeze, they're showing you your unexpressed rage. All the times you swallowed your anger to keep the peace. All the times you betrayed yourself to maintain connection. All the times you chose accommodation over authenticity. Their anger exhausts you because it's activating your own buried fury, and you've spent a lifetime keeping that fury locked away because it felt too dangerous to feel. This is shadow work, not the trendy version where you journal about your darkness and light a candle. The real thing. The confrontation with everything you've rejected about yourself. The integration of the outcast parts, the exiled qualities, the forbidden capacities. There was a period, a profound and terrifying period, where the psyche opened like a chasm. Visions came, figures emerged from the unconscious chaos, threatened to overwhelm consciousness entirely. This wasn't madness. It was encounter. Direct encounter with the shadow, with the anima, with the archetypal forces that shape human existence. And from that encounter came revolutionary understanding, and the unconscious isn't the enemy. It's the larger half of who we are trying to be known, trying to be integrated. This is what you're facing, not energy vampires, not toxic people, but your own unconscious using every relationship as a mirror, trying desperately to show you what needs to be integrated. The empath complex, the part of you that formed around that early wound, it has its own agenda. It wants to keep you safe by keeping you sensitive. It wants to monitor everyone else's emotions so you're never caught off guard. It wants to please and accommodate and attune because that's what saved you as a child. This complex runs in the background of your psyche like software you didn't know you installed, making decisions, filtering perceptions, driving behaviors that feel automatic and unchangeable. And here's what traditional protection techniques miss. You can't protect the complex. You can only make it more rigid. Every boundary you try to build, every energetic shield you try to construct, you're actually reinforcing the complex's belief that the world is dangerous and you need to stay hypervigilant. You're treating the symptom, not the cause. The real work is different. The real work is dialogue, conversation, relationship with this part of yourself, active imagination. This is the tool that changes everything. Not visualization, where you imagine what you want to see, but genuine encounter, where you let the unconscious speak. You meet the empath part of yourself as if it's a real entity, because in a sense, it is. It has its own voice, its own needs, its own fears. You might sit quietly and ask, who are you? What do you need? What are you protecting me from? And then you listen. Not to your conscious mind generating answers, but to what emerges from the deeper levels. You might see an image, a child maybe, or a guardian standing at a gate, or a wounded animal. The form doesn't matter. What matters is that you're in relationship with it rather than identified with it. Here's what this might actually look like. You sit down close, your eyes, take some breaths to settle. You ask, empath part, will you show yourself to me? And you wait. Maybe nothing comes at first. That's okay. You wait longer. Then suddenly you see her. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, standing in a doorway. She looks scared. She's watching, monitoring, making sure it's safe to come out. You speak to her maybe out loud if you're alone. I see you. What do you need? And she might say through feeling or words that arise in your mind, I need to make sure everyone is okay. If I don't watch them, something bad might happen. You feel the truth of this. This is the belief that's been running your life. So you tell her, you've been working so hard. You've been protecting us for so long. But you're 7. It's not your job to keep everyone okay. I'm an adult now. I can watch for danger. You can rest. She might not believe you at first. Complexes don't dissolve in one conversation. But you've started something crucial. You've begun separating from the identification. You're no longer the scared child monitoring everyone. You're the adult in relationship with that part. The complex might tell you it's afraid. Afraid that if you stop monitoring others, something terrible will happen. Afraid that if you focus on yourself, you'll be abandoned. Afraid that if you set boundaries, you'll be alone. These fears are real. They were valid once. They kept you alive. But they're not valid now, and the complex doesn't know that yet. It's still operating from that early blueprint, still running the survival program from childhood. So you listen. You validate. You thank this part for protecting you. And then you tell it the truth. We're safe now. We're adults now. We have resources we didn't have then. We can take care of ourselves. We don't have to monitor everyone else to stay safe. We can come home to ourselves. This dialogue shifts something fundamental. You're no longer identified with the sensitivity, you're in relationship with it. And from that spacious place, transformation becomes possible. But there's another layer, a deeper layer. Beyond personal shadow, beyond individual complexes, there's the self. Capital S. Not the ego self, not your personality or identity, but the transcendent center of the psyche. The organizing principle of wholeness. The part of you that was never wounded, never fragmented, never lost. When consciousness and unconscious meet, when ego and shadow engage, when the tension between opposites is held with awareness, something new emerges. The transcendent function. A third thing that's neither conscious nor unconscious, but both. Integration. Wholeness. The birth of the individuated self. This is what you're moving toward. Not killing the empath, not building impenetrable boundaries, not becoming hard or closed or defended, but transcending the whole paradigm. Moving beyond the split between self and other, between sensitive and boundaried, between open and protected. You become whole enough that you no longer need to defend against others because there's no fragmentation for them to activate. You become integrated enough that you can feel deeply without losing yourself, because your sense of self is rooted in something deeper than emotion. You become conscious enough that you can choose when to engage your sensitivity and when to rest in your own center. This is the real secret. This is what changes everything. Personal development through psychological integration. Not managing your sensitivity, but completing yourself. And now, let's make this practical. Let's bring this profound understanding into your daily life. Let's give you the tools to actually do this work. Theory without practice is philosophy. Practice without theory is blind action. What you need is both. The map and the territory, the understanding and the application. Let me give you a 3-step process for integration. 3 movements that will begin to shift your relationship with your sensitivity immediately. Step 1 is recognition. This is the practice of distinction, of discerning what's yours and what's projection. Throughout your day, especially in moments when you feel suddenly drained or overwhelmed, pause. Place your hand on your heart and ask, whose feeling is this really? Not in a dismissive way, not to distance yourself from empathy, but to understand the mechanism. Is this my feeling arising in response to what I'm witnessing? Or is this a feeling I'm attributing to the other person, assuming it's theirs when really it might be my own triggered response? Or is this perhaps a feeling that's arising because this person is mirroring a disowned part of myself? Do a body scan with inquiry. Notice where you feel tension, contraction, overwhelm. Your chest, your stomach, your throat, and ask that place. What are you trying to tell me? What old wound is activated right now? What part of me is this person showing me that I haven't wanted to see? This practice alone will begin to shift everything. Because the moment you create space between yourself and the automatic reaction, you're no longer identified. You're witnessing. And in witnessing, you reclaim choice. Stop asking, how do I protect myself? Start asking, what am I projecting? This question opens the door to shadow work. It turns every draining encounter into an opportunity for integration rather than evidence of your victimhood. Step 2 is reclamation. This is active shadow integration. This is where you name and claim the disowned qualities. Take out a piece of paper. Write down 3 people who consistently drain you. Next to each name, write the qualities you judge most harshly in them. Be honest. What bothers you most? Their selfishness, their neediness, their anger, their coldness, their manipulation, their victimhood. Now comes the hard part. For each quality, ask yourself, where do I possess this quality but refuse to see it? Where have I been selfish but called it self-care? Where have I been needy but called it connection? Where have I been angry but suppressed it? Where have I been cold but called it boundaries? Where have I manipulated but called it helping? This will create resistance. Your ego will protest. Your persona will rebel. That's normal. That's the complex trying to maintain the split. Stay with it. Keep asking. Keep looking. The shadow is always where you swear it isn't. And then comes the reclamation. Speak these truths aloud. I am capable of healthy selfishness. I contain the capacity for strong boundaries. My anger is sacred information. My needs are legitimate. I have the right to prioritize myself. I can say no without explanation. I am allowed to be unavailable. I can center my own experience. Feel how these statements land in your body. Notice the resistance. Notice the fear. Notice the small voice that says, if I become these things, I'll be abandoned, rejected, alone. That's the old wound talking. That's the complex. Thank it for its concern and speak the new truth anyway. This is how you reclaim your shadow. Not by becoming the narcissist, but by integrating the healthy opposite of your persona. By bringing home the exiled parts. By becoming full-spectrum human, rather than half a person trying to be good enough to deserve love. What happens in your body when you do this practice? You might notice your solar plexus activating. That's your power center coming online. You might feel heat tingling, even nausea, as blocked energy starts moving. You might feel rage surface. Old ancient rage at all the times you betrayed yourself to keep the peace. Let it move. Let it come up and out. This is integration happening at the somatic level. You might also notice profound grief. Grief for all the years you spent being who you thought you had to be instead of who you are. Grief for the child who learned that their authentic self wasn't safe or welcome. Grief for all the times you abandoned yourself to avoid abandonment. This grief is sacred. It's the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. Step 3 is reunion. This is where everything comes together. This is active imagination in practice. Find a quiet space. Close your eyes. Take several deep breaths. And then invite the empath part of yourself to appear. Don't force an image. Don't create something with your conscious mind. Wait. Allow. Let something emerge from the unconscious. It might be a figure, a child perhaps, a younger version of yourself. Or it might be a symbol, a guardian, a gate, a landscape. Trust whatever comes. This is the empath complex personified, made visible, ready for dialogue. Speak to it, out loud if possible. Ask, who are you? The answer might come in words, in feelings, in knowing. Listen without judgment. Ask, what do you need? Maybe it needs to be seen. Maybe it needs to be held. Maybe it needs to know it can rest, that the danger has passed, that you're safe now. Ask, what are you protecting me from? And this is crucial. The complex formed to keep you safe. It has a protective function. Honor that. Understand that. And then gently offer new information. We have other ways to stay safe now. We don't have to monitor everyone else. We can trust our adult capacity to navigate relationships. Ask, what would it take for you to integrate? For you to come home? For you to stop running the old program? Listen carefully. The answer might surprise you. This conversation might take 5 minutes or 50. It might happen once or need to be repeated weekly. The key is consistency and genuine curiosity. You're building a relationship with a part of yourself that's been running autonomously. You're bringing consciousness to what's been unconscious. You're creating the conditions for integration. Now let's go deeper into specific practices that support this integration. Mirror technique for shadow work. This one is powerful and uncomfortable. Every morning for a week, stand in front of a mirror. Look yourself in the eyes and speak this truth. I am not just the sensitive helper. I am also selfish, manipulative, angry, needy, and closed. I contain multitudes. I am human. I am whole. The first few times you'll barely be able to say it. Your persona will scream. Your complex will activate. You might cry, you might rage, you might want to run. Stay with it. Keep speaking the shadow qualities aloud. Not to become them, but to acknowledge that you already contain them. To bring them into consciousness where they can be integrated, rather than leaving them in the unconscious where they get projected. Dialogue practice for the empath complex. Set a timer for 15 minutes. Write with your dominant hand. Empath part, what do you want me to know? Then switch to your non-dominant hand and write whatever comes. Don't think, don't edit, just write. Let the complex speak. It will tell you what it needs, what it fears, what it's been trying to accomplish through your sensitivity. Write back with your dominant hand. Engage in conversation. Ask questions. Offer reassurance. Build relationship. This practice accesses the unconscious through the body. The non-dominant hand writes from a different place, bypassing the ego's control. Befriending your inner narcissist. This practice will feel wrong at first, and that's how you know it's working. Spend one day being gloriously self-focused. Not cruel, not dismissive, but centered completely on your own needs, your own wants, your own pleasure. Notice how guilty you feel. Notice how much resistance arises. Notice the voice that says you're being selfish, that you should be more giving, that you're not being a good person. That voice is the complex. That guilt is the wound. And pushing through it just for one day will show you that the world doesn't end when you prioritize yourself. People don't abandon you when you're unavailable. The sky doesn't fall when you say no. This experiential knowing is what begins to dismantle the complex's power. Now let's work with the archetypal dimension, because personal shadow work alone isn't enough. You also need to connect with the deeper patterns, the universal forces that stabilize and complete the fragmented psyche. The Divine Mother archetype. Not your personal mother with all her wounds and limitations, but the eternal feminine principle. The ground of being. Unconditional love. Nurturing that asks nothing in return. Close your eyes and feel into this presence. She's not outside you. She's the deeper layer of the collective unconscious, accessible to all of us. Invite her energy. Feel yourself held, loved, seen. Let this archetypal mother provide what your personal mother couldn't. This isn't fantasy. This is accessing the psychic structure that holds the template of maternal care. The Divine Father archetype. Strength, protection, healthy authority. The sacred masculine that provides structure and boundary. Feel into this presence. Let it show you what healthy self-assertion looks like. Let it model boundaries as love rather than rejection. Let it teach you that standing in your own truth doesn't mean abandoning connection. Again, this isn't your personal father. This is the archetypal pattern, the collective inheritance of protective masculine energy. The sovereign archetype. This is your unlived authority. The part of you that knows how to rule your own kingdom, set your own laws, make decisions from personal truth rather than people-pleasing. Spend time meditating on this archetype. Visualize yourself sitting on a throne. Feel what it's like to be sovereign in your own life. Notice the resistance. Notice how uncomfortable it feels. That discomfort is the pathway to integration. The sacred warrior archetype. Boundaries as love, not defense. The warrior doesn't fight out of hatred, but out of profound care for what matters. Your boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're the container that allows you to show up fully. Invoke the warrior. Feel the strength. Let this archetypal energy teach you that protection and compassion aren't opposites, they're partners. These archetypal practices stabilize the psyche. They provide foundation beyond personal history. They connect you to the collective wisdom that humanity has been accessing for millennia. When you work with archetypes, you're not alone in your individual healing. You're drawing on the deep well of human experience, the patterns that have guided transformation since consciousness began. Now let's completely reframe boundaries. Because everything you've been taught about boundaries is probably backwards. Boundaries aren't about keeping others out. They're about keeping you in. When you're whole, when you're integrated, when you know who you are and where you end and another begins, you don't need to defend against anything. Your boundary is simply your presence. The clear knowing of self that doesn't waver in the presence of another's emotion. True boundaries emerge from wholeness, not from woundedness. When you try to set boundaries from the wounded place, from the complex, you're actually reinforcing the split. You're saying, I'm so fragmented that I need walls to hold myself together. But when boundaries arise from integration, they're effortless. They're not walls, they're membranes. Permeable, flexible, intelligent. They allow what serves and naturally exclude what doesn't without effort, without drama. Think of an oak tree. It doesn't protect itself from the storm. It doesn't visualize white light or set energetic boundaries. It's simply so deeply rooted, so thoroughly itself, that it can bend in the wind without breaking. The storm moves through it, but the tree remains. This is what integration offers you. Not rigid defenses, but profound rootedness. Imagine standing in a strong wind. If you're rigid, you'll either break or exhaust yourself fighting to stay upright. But if you're rooted and flexible, you can sway with the wind. You can allow it to move through you without being moved from your center. This is what wholeness feels like in relationships. You can be present to someone's emotional storm without becoming the storm. I've watched this transformation happen countless times. Someone comes in completely identified with being an empath, exhausted, drained feeling, victimized by their own sensitivity. They learn these practices. They do the shadow work. They dialogue with their complex. And slowly something fundamental shifts. They stop saying, I absorbed their energy, and start saying, I noticed their emotion, and I chose how to respond. That shift from passive victim to active participant is everything. When you operate from the self, from that transcendent center of wholeness, everything changes. You feel others without becoming them. You sense their emotions, but you're not overtaken by them. You have compassion without collapse, connection without contamination. You can be fully present to another's pain while remaining anchored in your own center. This is the promise of individuation. This is what Carl Jung empath integration offers. Not less sensitivity, but conscious sensitivity. Not closed heart, but wise heart. Not defended life, but sovereign life. Daily practices for living from the self. Morning practice. Before you engage with anyone else, spend 10 minutes in silence connecting with your center. Feel into your body. Notice your breath. Ask yourself, what do I need today? What's true for me today? What wants to emerge through me today? Root in your own knowing before you meet the world. Throughout the day, regular check-ins, hand on heart, breath into belly. Am I still here? Am I still centered? Or have I abandoned myself to manage someone else's experience? If you've left your center, pause. Breathe. Come back. It's a practice. You'll leave 1,000 times. Come back 1,001. Evening practice. Review your day without judgment. Notice when you felt drained. Ask, what was I projecting in that moment? What shadow quality was activated? What does that teach me about what still needs integration? Write it down. Track the patterns. Your triggers are your teachers showing you exactly where the work remains. This is the path of personal development through integration. Not becoming someone different, but becoming whole. Not fixing what's broken, but integrating what's been split. Not protecting the wound, but healing it. So what happens when you actually do this work? When you move through recognition, reclamation, and reunion. When you integrate the shadow and connect with the archetypes. When you shift from identified victim of sensitivity to conscious wielder of it, you become something new. Not the empath as you knew it. Not the wounded helper, the perpetual rescuer, the sensitive soul who carries everyone's burden. You become the integrated empath. And this is a completely different archetype. A completely different way of being. The integrated empath doesn't feel less. If anything, you feel more. But the quality of the feeling changes. It's no longer unconscious absorption. It's conscious perception. You're not drowning in others' emotions. You're witnessing them with clarity. You can distinguish between your feelings and theirs. You can sense someone's pain without taking it on as your own. You can hold space without losing yourself in the space. Your sensitivity becomes art instead of affliction. It's a tool you can choose to employ, rather than a condition you suffer from. You can turn it on when it serves connection, understanding therapeutic presence. And you can turn it off when you need to rest, to restore, to attend to your own needs. This isn't dissociation or numbing. This is mastery. This is the integration of a capacity rather than identification with a wound. You've transformed from wounded healer to initiated healer. The difference is profound. The wounded healer helps from their wound, unconsciously seeking their own healing through others' healing. They're perpetually depleted because they're giving from emptiness, trying to fill their own void through service. The initiated healer has done their own work. They've descended into their own underworld, faced their own shadow, integrated their own fragments. They heal from wholeness rather than wound. And this makes all the difference. Your relationships change completely. You're no longer attracting narcissists because you're no longer projecting your disowned power onto others. You're no longer drawn to victims because you're no longer trying to rescue the helpless child in yourself through rescuing others. You're no longer triggered by angry people because you've integrated your own rage. The people who show up in your life now are mirrors of your wholeness rather than your fragmentation. This doesn't mean you only attract healed people. It means you relate to all people differently. Someone can be struggling and you can care without collapsing. Someone can be angry and you can witness without defending. Someone can be selfish and you can observe without resentment because you've given yourself permission to be appropriately selfish too. The external world doesn't necessarily change. Your internal relationship to it transforms completely. You might find that some relationships naturally fall away, not because you're rejecting anyone, but because the dynamic that held them together was your wound meeting their wound. When you heal, when you integrate, certain connections simply don't resonate anymore. And that's okay. That's part of the process. You're not here to maintain relationships that require your fragmentation to survive. You can be fully present without losing yourself. This is the gift of integration. You can sit with someone's grief and not become grief. You can witness someone's rage and not become rage. You can hold space for someone's joy and not make it about whether you're joyful enough. There's a spaciousness that emerges from knowing who you are at the deepest level. A certainty that can't be shaken by another's emotional state. You become a lighthouse, not a life raft. This distinction is everything. A life raft rushes to where people are drowning and tries to save them. It gets pulled under by the weight of who it's trying to help. A lighthouse stands still-rooted stable. It shines its light so others can find their way to shore. It doesn't save anyone. It illuminates the path so they can save themselves. This is your new role. Not savior, but illuminator. Not rescuer, but witness. Not the one who carries everyone's burden, but the one whose presence reminds others they can carry their own. This shift is liberation, for you and for everyone around you. But let's be clear about something important. This isn't a destination. Individuation isn't something you complete and then you're done. It's a spiral path. You'll revisit these wounds at deeper levels. New shadow material will emerge. New projections will arise. New opportunities for integration will present themselves. This is the nature of the psyche. It's a live dynamic, always growing, always seeking greater wholeness. What changes is your relationship to the process. You're no longer surprised by it. You're no longer devastated when a new wound surfaces. You recognize it as initiation, as the next layer of becoming. You've developed the capacity to meet each new edge with curiosity rather than shame, with compassion rather than self-judgment. This is what it means to be on the path of individuation. You're not perfect. You're not healed in some final sense. But you're conscious. You're engaged. You're committed to the ongoing work of integration. And this commitment changes everything. The work you've done ripples out. Your wholeness affects the collective. When you stop projecting your shadow, you're not adding more unconsciousness to the world. When you integrate your wounds, you're healing patterns that may go back generations. When you become sovereign in your own life, you model what's possible for others. Think about how patterns get passed down. Your grandmother couldn't set boundaries, so she martyred herself. Your mother learned that love means self-sacrifice, so she did the same. And then you inherited that template. The empath wound passed down through generations like an heirloom nobody wanted, but everyone kept. Until now. When you do this work, when you integrate and individuate, you're not just healing yourself. You're breaking the chain. You're stopping the transmission of unconscious wounding to the next generation. This is why personal development matters on a collective level. This is why your individual healing is never just individual. We're all connected through the collective unconscious, through the shared archetypal patterns, through the invisible threads that link human psyche to human psyche. When you transform your relationship to sensitivity, you're changing the field for everyone. You're adding consciousness where there was only reaction. You're bringing light where there was only shadow. This is the sacred responsibility that comes with consciousness, with integration, with individuation. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unknow what you know. And now you carry something precious. The awareness that the enemy was never outside, that the draining others were always mirrors, that the sensitivity was always pointing you back to yourself. How you show up in relationships now matters. Not in a heavy, burdensome way, but in a sacred sense. You're no longer adding to the unconscious reactivity of the world. You're bringing consciousness to each encounter. You're meeting others from your center rather than your wound. You're responding rather than reacting. You're choosing rather than defaulting. You've become what the world needs most. Not another helper who martyrs themselves. Not another empath who collapses under the weight of others' emotions. But a whole human. Someone who has done the deep work, who has faced their shadow, who has integrated their fragments. Someone who can hold space without losing themselves. Someone who can love without losing themselves. Someone who can feel deeply without drowning. This is the gift you now offer. Not your help, but your wholeness. Not your sacrifice, but your sovereignty. Not your endless giving, but your integrated presence. And that presence, that rooted groundedness in self, is more transformative than any helping or fixing or rescuing could ever be. The journey of Carl Jung empath integration is the bravest work you'll ever do. It requires facing what you've been avoiding. It demands honesty you've been protecting yourself from. It asks you to release the identity that kept you safe, even though that identity was also a prison. It invites you to become so thoroughly yourself that there's nothing left to defend. And on the other side of this journey, there's a different kind of life waiting. One where you're not defined by your sensitivity. One where you're not imprisoned by your empathy. One where you use your capacity to feel deeply as the gift it was always meant to be, rather than suffering from it as a curse. You are not broken. You were never broken. You were fragmented, yes. Split, yes. Identified with a wounded part, yes. But not broken. And now through this work of integration, through the sacred process of individuation, you're becoming whole, coming home to yourself, gathering all the exiled parts and bringing them back into the wholeness of who you truly are. The real protection isn't in boundaries or shields or energetic techniques. The real protection is wholeness itself. When you're complete, there's nothing to steal. When you're integrated, there's nothing to drain. When you're sovereign, there's nothing to defend. This is the secret I promised you at the beginning. The secret that transforms everything. You don't need to protect your energy. You need to integrate your psyche. You don't need to manage your empathy. You need to complete your individuation. You don't need to fix what's wrong with you. You need to gather what's been scattered and become whole. You were never too sensitive. You were always becoming. This overwhelming capacity to feel this exhausting attunement to others, this draining empathy that you've struggled with for so long, it was always your psyche's call to wholeness. It was always the invitation to the most important journey you'll ever take, the journey home to yourself. What you choose to become is yours and yours alone. Not what happened to you, not what was done to you, not what patterns were passed down to you. What you choose to integrate, what you commit to healing, what you transform through consciousness that becomes who you are. And I'm telling you with absolute certainty, you have everything you need for this journey. The sensitivity that feels like a curse is actually the gift that makes this work possible. Your capacity to feel deeply is the very capacity you'll use to feel into your shadow, to dialogue with your complexes, to integrate what's been split. This wound is the medicine. This pain is the path. The irony is perfect. The very thing that's been overwhelming you is the same thing that will save you. Your sensitivity, when turned inward with consciousness, becomes the most powerful tool for transformation. You can feel the nuances of your inner world. You can sense the presence of complexes. You can detect the whisper of shadow material before it becomes a roar. You can notice the subtle shifts that signal integration is happening. Other people have to learn these skills. You already have them. You just need to redirect them. This is the ultimate reframe. You're not cursed with too much feeling. You're gifted with the exact capacity you need to become whole. The universe, your psyche, the larger intelligence that guides individuation, it gave you the perfect instrument for your own transformation. Your sensitivity is the key to your freedom. You just didn't know how to use it yet. So if you're still here, if you've stayed with me through this entire journey, that tells me something about you. It tells me you're ready. Ready to stop being the victim of your sensitivity and become the master of it. Ready to stop projecting your shadow and start integrating it. Ready to stop living from the wound and start living from wholeness. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been struggling with the same overwhelming empathy, the same draining sensitivity, the same exhausting pattern of attracting people who take and take and take. Send this to the person in your life who's ready to transform their understanding of what it means to be an empath. And comment below right now before you leave. Tell me, what shadow quality are you ready to reclaim? What disowned part of yourself are you ready to integrate? What quality in others triggers you most, because that's your roadmap? That's showing you exactly where the work needs to happen. Name it, claim it. Begin the journey of bringing it home. Remember, you were never broken. You were always becoming. The sensitivity, the empathy, the overwhelming feelings, they were always the call to this deeper work. the invitation to individuation, the path to wholeness. Welcome home to yourself. The journey of a lifetime awaits.